This is the newest one that just came out. I wrote on to Chillicothe and Paranormal Chronicles. And I also co-wrote Twilight.
Lying. You did not co-write.
No, I did not.
Twilight.
It was Harry Potter.
No, it wasn't.
I like this guy so far. I like Don't Let the Chicken Song.
They already have questions.
Hands down. He has a question until the end.
Oh, my face.
What?
I get in trouble every day. I'm married to a teacher. He's not allowed to smack students, so I take Why? Well, then cover your face, that's fine.
Maverick.
I've been on TV. I've been on radio. Oh, I loved it.
How many hours?
Hours of TV? We had to combine it, maybe an hour.
Have you ever been on TV with them?
She watched me from the sound stage. She stood on the side and watched it. She kept making little hand motions like stick to the subject.
And I laughed at him.
Yeah, she laughs at me when I speak.
If you were up there and I was in part, I would run up there and say, "Hi, I'm her husband. I'm the show of it."
Did you just marry my husband because of that?
I said, and I was in talk.
And now you just became me? That's even weirder. Sorry to freak me out.
I'm you guys' new language arts teacher.
And he's a woman.
Everyone run! You know what's funny? Now
You're going through a lot of changes there today, Dakota.
Huh?
You're going through a lot of changes there today. Okay. Nice to meet you.
And my family.
And they come over here.
I live here in town.
You're not better at it. Thank you. All right, listen up. Mr. Parks is here today to talk to us a little bit about ghosts and ghost writing and how we write a ghost story. You are to be listening and to give him the same type of respect that you give your teachers. If you do not, then you will be in a lot of trouble for that. So please make sure that you are listening at all times and not talking. We will have a chance for you to ask questions, but it will be at the end. Does everybody understand what we're doing?
Yeah.
All right, mouths are shut. And you're listening. Tristan, you are turned, so you are facing the person that is talking. Thank you very much. All right.
My advice is to listen to everything she says. I'm married to her. I know the consequences. I'm Neal Parks, author, radio host, TV personality, paranormal investigator, researcher, public speaker, historian. This is a collection of collage of different images where I've been at Gettysburg, Salem, Massachusetts, another shot of Gettysburg, various places I've been throughout the United States to do investigations, to write about them. Because first and foremost, I am an author. Have any of you watched the TV shows Ghost Hunters, Paranormal State, Ghost Adventures? Well, those people, they're all full of malarkey. I'm the only real deal, so I'm right here in front of you. What will I discuss today? The origins of a ghost story, beginning, middle, and ending, how to create a character, their background, their family, fears, friends, and personalities, and the setting, location, time, and history. Have any of you ever done a creative writing assignment?
You've written something before, for a teacher.
That's good. Or
But you made
maybe
up.
even keep a journal. That counts because you have to form somewhat of a story about yourself in that format. Come on. I didn't do this last time. There we go. Who am I? I'm an author who researches paranormal phenomenon. I write books on this topic and how occurrences of the supernature affect people in the areas afflicted by these anomalies. Anomalies are weird occurrences, unexplained activity. My team and I conduct all of the research and investigation for my books, and we not only investigate locally, but regionally, and when time provides, throughout the United States. My main focus is on ghosts, spiritual encounters, and haunted locations. It sounded like I said soup. Ghosts and soup. But no, spiritual encounters and haunted locations. However, I do research UFO sightings, crop formations, Bigfoot-type creatures, water monsters, the Mothman, etc. I have been doing this kind of research for over 20 years. And here are the 3 books that I've had released so far. The new one I brought with me today. There have been some pre-orders, and I'll be meeting with the students afterward so you can receive your books. This one, Paranormal Chronicles, Tales of Humor and Horror and the Absolutely Strange, was published in 2008. 2010, I released Haunted Chillicothe, True Ghost Stories, Tales, Legends, and Folklore. And the newest one, which is by far the best thing I've written so far, Haunted Holidays, Tales of Inspiration, Terror, and Reflection. I am the founder of Parks Paranormal Research and Investigation. And here's some of the Chillicothe hotspots I'll be discussing today. The Majestic Theater, the Ashley House, which is on 104 across from the VA hospital. This is the Canal Warehouse directly across the street from Sack and Save and Trinity United Methodist Church. And this is the men's shop across from the History Store and Ivy's. Up at the top here, you see all of the windows leading up to the very top floor, which used to be the ballroom that they would use for soldiers to dance with their wives and their girlfriends before they would go off to war during the Civil War up to World War I. And then it was no longer used as that at that point, due to the flu outbreak of 1918. I'll go ahead and read one story to you from Haunted Holidays today, which is titled Sweet Spirits, and it's all about Lloyd's Sweet Shop here in Chillicothe. Are you familiar with Lloyd's? Well, the upstairs above Lloyd's is haunted. I've been through it. I spent an entire day up there. And haunted with what? I really don't know. What is your interpretation of a ghost, spirit, or angel, whatever it may be? It's all open to interpretation. Sweet Spirits. With Halloween just around the corner, Neal couldn't wait to meet with the organizers of the tour. It was the first year working on the Ghost Walk in Chillicothe. The walk was a great event. It allowed people in the community to volunteer their time to open some of the areas in town that were normally not open to the public. People in the community would come out to learn a little more about the history of the downtown and hopefully get a little scare as well. Perfect for Halloween. As an added bonus, the money raised from the tour went to a great cause, the League of Women's Voters. They organize the event each year as part of their major fundraising efforts. Neal felt super excited. Neal, that's me. He couldn't believe they had called to him. Excuse me. He couldn't believe they had called to him to ask him to help them investigate all of the buildings they would be using this year for the event. Neal had recently published a book about paranormal occurrences, and in a small town like Chillicothe, they were already considering him an expert. Neal looked at Lucas, his 2-year-old son. It always amazed him how interesting Luke could make life seem. Here they were standing inside a store Neal had been to at least 100 times over his lifetime, Lloyd's Sweet Shop, and Lucas, wild-eyed childish wonder, made it seem like he was seeing it for the first time. Oh, what? Lucas said. His mouth hung open and his face was pressed up against the glass of one of the long displays of chocolate candy. Sure, buddy, Neal said. Just a minute. Neal walked over to the counter and handed the lady behind the counter a $5 bill. I'd like a few dollars worth of your chocolate coins, please. Great, here you go. The cashier handed him some change and the candy in a brown paper bag. Neal snickered inside as he handed a few of the coins to Lucas, thinking that his wife wouldn't be too happy knowing that he was letting Luke have this much candy. He soothed his conscience by telling himself that he would split the bag with Lucas. Besides, how could he say no when he looked into those adorable eyes? Just then, Neal noticed Bart Henshaw walking into the shop. This was his point of contact with the League of Women's Voters. Bart had a history of working closely through the years with local and regional historians, and brought with her a wealth of information. Hello, Bart, Neal said. Ready to get started? Absolutely. It's an honor to finally meet you, Bart replied. And this must be little Lucas that I've heard so much about. Correct. This is my right-hand man. Luke smiled up at Bart, who looked up at her with smeared chocolate coins all over his teeth. Bart shifted her tote bag off of her right arm and pulled out a folder. Let's make our way outside, and I'll tell you a little about the history of this gem. Neal grabbed Lucas and maneuvered him up and securely onto his right hip. They exited Lloyd's and stood a few feet from the entryway. Bart looked down at her folder and carefully considered the most important historical and ghostly tidbits to share with Neal. Okay, Neal, your spot during the ghost walk will be in the upstairs main room. You'll have about 15 minutes per group for your presentation. This area will be lots of fun for you. It was built in 1843. Not only has it been a candy shop, but it was at one time a music hall, a grocery store, and even used to be a brothel. It is said to be very haunted. I'll start with the rumors. The rumors of footsteps being heard from upstairs and doors slamming. This has been a staple among previous owners all the way up to the current owners. People even claim to see a woman in the upstairs kitchen area, and the sounds of old-time parlor music can be heard playing at all hours of the night, Bart added. Neal was getting more excited by the minute. That sounds great. Let's get started. Bart didn't hesitate to unlock the door which led upstairs. This was not her first time above the candy shop. In fact, she had led a psychic medium through the same area 1 week before in order to get her impression of the paranormal activity that existed within those 4 walls. Bart was excited to get Neal's impression of the area. Perhaps Neal's research, when completed, would authenticate the findings reported by the psychic, Bart thought to herself. The moment Neal looked at the stairway he was about to climb, he was taken aback. The stairs sat at a very steep incline and were very old and narrow. He wondered how Lucas would deal with the climb. Bart led the way up the stairs with Neal and Lucas not far behind, if not a bit slower. As he ventured onward, Neal could almost feel his shoulders rubbing on both sides of the walls as he climbed. He was hoping that Luke wouldn't get smushed against the walls of the stairway. The air was thick with mildew and the smell of rotting paint and wallboard. For a brief second, Neal pondered going back down the stairs. He knew Luke sometimes had bad allergies, and he did not want to bring him into a place that could stir them up. He lulled in the middle of the stairway to look for Luke's reaction to the smells. Luke's face was buried in a bag of chocolates that he had wrestled from his father's hands on the walk up the staircase, and he didn't even seem to notice with that. Neal decided to climb the rest of the way up. The light from the battery-operated candles and Bart's handheld flashlight guided their pathway as the rooms were dimly lit. Bart led them into a main room with a kitchen and bathroom to the right. To the left, Neal could see 3 smaller rooms with a much larger adjoining room off of that. Wow, I didn't realize this place was so big, Neal said. Lucas wiggled in his father's arms until Neal finally set him free. Stay close, buddy. Don't wander off too far. Neal began to walk around the main room. To be honest, the whole place sort of gave him the creeps. It smelled very strange, and for some reason, the room seemed much colder than it had been outside just a few moments ago. He suddenly noticed that he could see his breath, and Bart had moved on into the other rooms. Bart, he called out, where are you? I'm in the back room, she responded. Neal shined his light on Lucas, fully covered in chocolate face. Lucas had just begun to laugh quietly. I share, Daddy. I share. No, sweetie, Daddy doesn't need any right now. You enjoy it. He reached down and grabbed Luke and headed into the direction he had heard Bart's voice. Luke braced his feet and began to whimper. My friend, he called out. I am your friend, Luke. What are you talking about? Come on, let's go. Daddy's got work to do. Neal grabbed Luke, his waist, and hoisted him up in the air and forced him into his arms. Neal grabbed Luke around his waist, hoisted him up in the air, and forced him into his arms. Oddly, Lucas didn't seem to be paying much attention, and as they walked into the next room, Lucas continued to point and laugh over Neal's shoulder. Maybe he needs a nap, Neal thought. They quickly joined Bart. Neal was surprised to find that this room was decently lit by battery-powered candles, and much warmer than the room they had just come from. He secretly wondered if maybe the old building had some heating problems. Bart was looking at the old bookshelf in the corner and checking out the room's features. This would be a perfect place for you to set up your book signing, she said. The place is a little dusty, but nothing our cleaning crews can't handle before the ghost walk. Yeah, this looks great. I think I could set up my tables right over here, Neal replied. He grabbed the tape measure that he had been holding and set Luke down on the floor. Here, Neal said as he handed Lucas a few toys from the bag that he had been carrying. He began measuring the space for the proposed tables. All of a sudden, out of the corner of his eye, Neal noticed that Lucas was quietly babbling to something or someone. It almost sounded like Luke was singing a song, though it was one from long ago. Bart noticed Neal's distraction and walked over to where Luke was sitting. She figured she could maybe keep the little guy some company for a bit while his father finished up. As she approached, she heard him humming a familiar tune. But where had she heard it before? Where had it come from? She couldn't quite place it. She pushed her thoughts to the back of her mind and knelt down beside the child. Cool cars you got there, she said. Want some company? No, Wyatt played, Lucas said. She figured he must be referring to his imaginary friend. He seemed perfectly happy, so she decided to leave him be. She watched him for a few minutes, and then turned back to Neal, who had just finished up. Neal looked at Bart and remembered that he still had a couple of questions to ask her. He took out his notebook and pen and began to read off his list. So how long for each group? Do I need to watch to make sure those entering have tickets? And other than me and the guide, did you plan on including anything else at this location? Neal rattled off. Suddenly, Neal noticed that the chill had returned to this room as well. Bart began to answer Neal's questions. Each tour should take about 5 minutes long, and yes, they should have tickets in their hands when they enter. Actually, thanks for reminding me. I thought it would be really cool to set up a CD player to play music from the building's dance hall days. In fact, I already found a CD that matches the historical accounts as to what they actually used to play in the building at that time. All of a sudden, chills ran down Bart's arms. No, it can't be. Yet it was. That song that Lucas had been singing, it was one of the songs from the CD. I was intending to play it during the ghost walk. That was why it seemed so familiar to me. Neal looked at Bart. Her face had the strangest look of amazement on it, and she just stood there, frozen in the corner. You all right? He asked. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Luke push his car in the direction of the corner of the room. There was something on the ground in the corner. 3 somethings, in fact. But what were they? They shone off of his flashlight as he shined it in the direction. Just then Bart said, I think we are really going to have some ghosts on this ghost walk. This location seems pretty active. Before he could respond, he noticed that Bart's eyes had never left Lucas. How long has Lucas had an imaginary friend? He doesn't, Neal replied. Why? Just then Lucas's car raced to the corner. If he hadn't seen it, he wouldn't have believed it. Just at the right second, he turned his head to look at Luke. All of a sudden, he saw the car turn around, race back to Lucas. Neal immediately broke from his conversation and moved to that very corner. What in the world? Did you see that? Neal said. Bart just shook her head up and down, frozen in her place in that same corner. Car, Daddy, car! Lucas sputtered. Neal realized that his foot had stopped the car's movement and brought it to rest a few feet away from him. Neal moved to the corner to investigate. It was there in that corner that he saw it, the shiny things he had noticed earlier. They were chocolate coin wrappers. All the chocolate had been licked clean, but Lucas had not been in that corner. Then Neal noticed that the room had returned to a normal temperature again. He looked down at Lucas to make sure that he was okay. Wyatt gone now. He likes chocolate, Lucas said. Bart and Neal just looked at each other in amazement. Neal grabbed Lucas close to him and looked at Luke's smiling face. Well, it sure is a good thing Wyatt lives in a candy shop, huh, Luke? Neal said. So who's interested in seeing some pictures of possible ghosts? I think everyone's raising their hands. This is the Majestic Theater. Any one of you familiar with it? It's on...
Wait a minute, you don't have attention. I'm not sure what some people up there are doing.
Which ones?
Don't worry about it. If you don't know who they are, then stop.
The ones lying down?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
Let's make sure we're sitting up paying attention, okay? Because that's how we're polite to someone who's come in. We are sitting up.
And the Majestic Theater is on West 2nd Street, downtown, the historical downtown district. You live in Chillicothe? Okay.
Okay, so
Have you
we're
ever
not
been to
asking
the
you
Ghost Club?
questions for Leah.
Well, this was in March of 2009. And an interesting thing about orbs, have any of you heard about orbs or the term orbs? Well, they could either be a particle of dust, a moisture droplet, or in my case, what the great find is when there's something like an actual energy source.
Some people think they're ghosts.
Some people theorize that those may be spiritual energies. And these items here are dust particles, obviously, because you can see through them. They have thumbprint indicators, or they have like a snowflake effect in the center. That's normally dust or moisture. Something solid like that that has a haze surrounding it, that's some form of energy, whether it be man-made or ghost energy. It's anyone's guess. This is the top of the balcony. I say spirit energy claiming its seat, question mark. It's hovering directly above this seat, and at the point of contact when I was photographing this portion, the seat not the seat itself, but where the seats fold down like in a movie theater, and then they go up when you stand. That seat portion smacked the backside of the seat itself where it folds on its own.
And that they actually say in the Majestic, there's rumors that if you look up at the balcony, sometimes you can see feet hanging over the edge.
Or when people are practicing before they do actual theatrical plays, they'll do a scene and get it right, and then someone up in the balcony, even though they don't see anyone, starts clapping. This is known as Blood Alley between the Majestic Theater and what used to have an actual hotel sitting next to it. And on the other side of the Majestic Theater is another alleyway that's also known as Blood Alley. It was during the Civil War, and more recently the flu outbreak of 1918, where the morgues and the hospitals were running out of room to stockpile bodies of people who died from the flu outbreak of 1918. So they were stockpiling them in the basement of Majestic and various other houses and buildings. I'm sorry?
She was young.
Oh, yeah. And that's where they would supposedly drain the blood through these alleys. And this was an interesting object that appeared above Stephen's head. That's Mrs. Parks' brother. This is the mist in the boiler room. Anytime a photograph is taken in here, some strange haze or mist will appear around the boiler or around the inside of the boiler room. And this boiler has not been operational in some time. A lot of people who go into this room talk about a feeling of dread or someone pushing them out of the room. This is the third floor of the Majestic Theater. I call this item a dimensional crack. It's a strange, almost like a streak of lightning on a bare wooden floor. So we actually ended up getting it within a 5-second time period where it shows up again. And I, just for fun, I put, is it a ghost snake? Because it seems to be moving in that fashion. This is the main aisleway in the theater itself, where there's rumored to be a man in a black trench coat with a top hat and cane that will walk straight out of this floor directly to where the stage used to be elevated and level with a higher floor. Since then, they've lowered the floor, and now you get like this strange body that will walk straight out in midair. And I'd like to think that that might be his feet walking down the aisle.
Because that was taken in a completely dark auditorium.
This is in one of the dressing rooms. I call it an actor awaiting his cue. This was a photograph taken in a mirror in one of the dressing rooms, and directly above and in front of the photographer appears to be a white button-down shirt that's still open, the collar flipped over, and a head right here of possibly a man.
Looks like he's leaning in.
Yeah. This is in one of the main stairways. You see the exit sign here with the main spotlight for an exit sign reflecting on that portion of the glass. You see the T, the I, and the X. That's normal. That's reflective matter. And then you get these weird images that pop up in this picture. A strange red haze, a strange white ball haze orb, and then this lightning streak coming off of this pant leg. Okay, this caught my interest at first because I thought this was something significant. But I've noticed with a lot of pictures taken by paranormal investigators, they'll take a picture in a dark area, and one single light is what it concentrates on, and if you move just the slightest bit, it causes the light to dance around. That's nothing significant. Now, what drew my attention later was this shadowy outline of this guy's body right here, and his face right here.
Looks like you're standing there.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't notice that till many, many months later. This is the Carnegie Library investigation that we did in March of 2010 in Washington Courthouse. You may recognize Yolanda Harris from Fox 28 News. She followed us and documented the whole investigation, and that was her cameraman. And this is a few members of my team here. We did an investigation in a haunted library. Ironically, we're standing in front of the fiction section where that does view. These are different paranormal images that have been submitted to me. This one showed up on a lady's digital camera, a woman who just so happened to work with with Mrs. Parks' mother at the VA hospital. She was taking different pictures, and this one showed up after her grandchildren.
She was just taking pictures of her house, so just going around from room to room, and then this showed up.
And this showed up, and she submitted it to us. And when we went to her house to do an investigation, we noticed several framed pictures around the house of her mother, who had been deceased, and her brother, who was deceased. And they both wore glasses and looked a lot like this.
And you can kind of see
So
it.
they seem to be hanging around the house a little bit. This is from a slave cabin that was originally in the South, that was dismantled and brought up to Sabina, Ohio, and reassembled and used to do Underground Railroad reenactments during the Civil War era. And this was a picture taken by Mrs. Parks with a Kodak digital camera. And this is the entryway to the upstairs, and there seemed to be some kind of movement, like a white swoosh of something dancing in front of the camera just to say hello. This is an old cemetery from Georgia where these are a lot of old headstones, a lot of old graves. But then up in this tree you have this strange hot pink translucent bell that seems to be projecting light off of itself. Yeah, it's a hot pink squirrel. So what's funny is it moves from the tree and just hangs out here above this monument of this of the angel. This is a crop formation that popped up in Bainbridge, Ohio in 2003. Familiar with crop formations? Don't really know what's causing them. Don't know if it's little green men. Don't know if it's prank. Definitely not boys on three-wheelers, I don't think. I'm not for sure. You have to have a strong grasp on geometry in order to pull that off. I don't think you do that with a four-wheeler. Here's one that popped up a month earlier in 2003, Peebles, Ohio, directly across the road from the Serpent Mounds. And oddly enough, the one I just showed you was across the road from the Side Mounds on your way into Bainbridge. They all seem to be connected and near ancient earthwork culture structures or some sort of Indian burial ground. This was a covered bridge that was photographed advertising for the Terror in the Hills out on Charleston Pike. And I noticed this in the image, so I zoom in on it, and that's what it looks like. That is a certifiable energy orb of some sort. Not sure what it's related to, but it's there for a reason. But that's definitely not a dust particle. Now this is a picture of a man mowing his lawn with his grandson. And this is at night. Same grandson, same guy. The kid seems to be pointing at something, and there's a strange smoky haze appearing in front of him. And then it takes a different form in this third picture. Now Mrs. Sparks thinks that this is just someone taking the picture smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Or it could be a ghost that smokes. I'm not sure. It's interesting nonetheless. Now this is from the old burying ground in Beaufort, North Carolina. This is a 300-year-old cemetery where pirates and Revolutionary War soldiers, Civil War soldiers, World War I and II, and a lot of sailors are buried. So there's pirates in this graveyard as well. Now this picture was taken beyond the fence, and this is an old tree here, though, like a banana tree almost. And this strange glow came from just a patch of leaves. Like, well, that's unusual, so I zoomed in on it. And it's got a purple haze surrounding it. It's a strong white ray of light. I'm not sure what it's connected to, but it's ironic how it's in an old cemetery like that, and then it just pops up.
I think it's a person like that. If you look back to your head.
The person laying in the tree that glows? Okay. Like radiation poisoning? Okay. This is an old mausoleum that goes beyond the cemetery. A mausoleum is where they bury people, not under the ground, but sort of stacked family plots. And this caught my eye, where something seems to be coming out of the mausoleum, so we zoom in on the enlargement of it, and it's a green sleeve with a hand reaching out for a lantern. This picture was taken by Mrs. Parks. And it's
And there
the
was
same.
no one in the cemetery, totally.
Now this is from Crybaby Bridge. This was submitted to me. This is a person sitting in their vehicle. That's the front of the vehicle, the doors, all the way to the back. So the vehicle itself is at an angle like this. And a person just took a picture of all the graffiti that's inside of the wall, and that's what appeared in front of their camera after they took the picture. At some angle, it looks like two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, like they're frowning. But then you look at it at a different angle, and it's like a mouth, a nose, and two eyes. So once again,
Back here, it sort of looks like a screaming skull, but again,
Yeah.
But I technically think again, it's probably just cigarettes.
just smoke, she thinks.
I think it looks like a skeleton body. If it is a person, the skull of each thing looks like a body.
Remember though that this person is also in a car, and what comes out of the back of your car as you go through a tunnel?
Exhaust.
Exhaust, okay? So
And they're
exhaust,
obviously wearing a coat.
exhaust could be hitting the side of the tunnel and creating that as well.
Same effect. Why do you think I have her a part of the team? I'd be chasing the moon otherwise. This is an old horse-drawn carriage that would always take important people through town before they would be buried in the cemetery after their death. And this is in the Birdcage Theater in Arizona. It's an old ghost town. So you look at the horse-drawn carriage, you're like, oh, that's beautiful. It's really old, really rustic looking. But this is the black velvet mesh of where normally the widow or the widower would sit while they were taking their past love to the cemetery to be buried, and they would peer out at people that would always drop their hats and bow their heads. You totally see a face here, so I zoom in on it, and you can definitely make out the definition of a face. I don't think that's smoke.
No.
This picture was submitted to me by Jason Halls from TAPS, the TV show Ghost Hunters. This is from the courtyard of the guest house bed and breakfast on West Fifth Street.
Wait a minute, you don't have everybody's attention.
Now, the guest house bed and breakfast was built by our first governor in Chillicothe, Ohio, the state of Ohio, Governor Tiffin, who lived here in Chillicothe. And he had the house built as a wedding gift to his daughter. And now it's used as a guest house and bed and breakfast, basically. And people come from all around to stay there because there's supposedly the son of the governor haunts that place. So this is the courtyard where I was getting all kinds of interesting readings and feelings, and we've had some dancing orbs in this area.
Dancing you can do watching.
This is Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, August 2012. This picture was taken by Mrs. Parks. And this is us going through one of the areas where one of the main battles took place. Because the whole thing about Gettysburg, wherever a cannon hit or someone died who was significant, like a general or a captain, they would erect a monument there for that person. So here we have what looks like gunfire or a cannon fire out of nowhere. And going in this general direction where you see this guy's face up here going horseback through the woods. You totally make out the smokiness of a horse and a face
Now,
here.
some people would say it's a ghost, other people would just say it's the reflection of the glass, and because we were moving each time we take it. It's dependent on your interpretation.
It's still fun to write about nonetheless. This was a picture that I took in Hillsboro, Ohio in 2011. I thought the horizon was gorgeous, and I was preparing to take a picture at dusk, and as I lifted the viewfinder of my phone, I see this. I drop the viewfinder, and it's not the sky. So I pick up my viewfinder again and take a picture, and there's several rounded clouds like that off in the distance, but this one caught my attention because of the strange light in the center. Now, a UFO doesn't have to be alien, incorporated with aliens or a spaceship. It's just a simple and unidentified flying object. Something like that, I have no idea what the heck it is, so it's a UFO.
Or it could just be a cloud.
Or smoke.
Or smoke.
So right now I'm going to focus, because the time has come, how to write a story. How do you write a story? The importance of mapping out your story before you begin. Because first, you have to think about the characters. For example, with the story that I did about Lloyd Sweetshop, characters, that being me, my son Luke, and the other woman, Bart Henshaw, that was with me. Those were the characters. Deciding the physical and personality traits of our characters. Obviously, Neal, that being me in the story, I was very inquisitive, which I was very curious about what was going on, and I was seeking the information. And Bart was very open-minded, very excited about what was going on. And Luke was just an innocent victim in the whole story because he didn't know to feel afraid or threatened, because obviously what was there was not going to hurt him. So he just went with the flow and ate the chocolate and played with the car. Think about the setting and what settings would work best for your characters. The whole setting itself, what was the setting where it was taking place? Lloyd Sweetshop, top floor, upstairs. An old dilapidated property. Dilapidated being rundown, old, falling apart. Brainstorm what these settings would feel like, smell like, the smell of musty mildew and dirty old wallboard, for example. Look like, I explained what it looked like. You can envision it for yourself. What emotions would a character undergo here? Think about the conflicts your characters will undergo, and you decide if they will face internal or external conflicts. And Mrs. Parks told me you've been working on that a lot lately, with how many and whether those conflicts will be man versus man, man versus society, or man versus nature, and with who or what they will face during these conflicts. You with me? Good. Chart out what your story will look like, a basic outline. Finally, you write your rough draft. Now go through your story with a fine-tooth comb and look at your word choice. Use good details, not just bleak, ambiguous answers like the dog was black. You've got to really put yourself into the black dog that you saw. What was it doing? What was it eating? How was it walking? Did it smell bad? Did it do its business in the yard? Use good details, punctuation, capitalization, and finally the flow of your story and the way you link one paragraph to the next. Then you write a second draft a third draft, and a fourth draft. Now, Mrs. Parks gets after me about this when I'm writing stories. She doesn't want me just to do it halfway. She wants me to basically take the story, rip it apart, find ways to move things around and make it work better, not just something simplistic. You keep improving your story until it's the best that it can be. Questions.
Actual questions.
Actual questions, not just, I saw a ghost in my house and it ate my donuts. I need a real question. We'll start with you, 1987.
Okay. How much is your book?
My books, the actual paperback, the first two, those are about $16.
And can be bought at Book World.
And can be bought at Book World or West 2nd Street Boutique. And rumor has it, now this is just a rumor, History Store may be carrying them. So call them and bug them until they do. But you can always get my books on the internet, Amazon, and now they're available on eBay. I'm not sure what that says about my credibility, but you can get it for like $2 or something. And BarnesandNoble.com, and of course the publisher, SynergyBooks.com.
And his new book.
My new book is a lot more affordable because it's an ebook format. It's not paperback yet,
Which means
so
you can
it's
put it
a
on your
digital
phone.
download and it's a lot cheaper.
And it's how much?
This is $6 basically on disc. If you download it as a digital download through the internet, it's like anywhere from $5.98 to $7, depending on who the housing group is that's selling it. Yes. Oh, okay. Hi. You, sir.
Are all of your stories true, just like the characters and stuff? Like,
A lot of them I take creative liberty with. I'll take a small story that took maybe 5 minutes to tell me, and I'll add person, place, and thing to it. I'll add a destination at the end. I'll add history to it, what the people were involved in. So I'll take the basic truth and add a lot to it to make it more of a story. Or, like the third book, Haunted Holidays, there are a lot of stories I wrote that just came from my mind.
And a lot of them are made up too, based on like somebody will tell him something,
Yeah.
and then he takes what he tells them and changes the characters' names and things like that.
Protect the innocent.
Yeah.
Yes.
why do they call it Crybaby Bridge?
Crybaby Bridge.
Oh,
The legend of that, there's so many legends, and one of which is that a girl didn't want to keep her baby because she was afraid that her family would kick her out of the house, so she threw it over the bridge. And that's what you supposedly hear is the cries of the child.
There's another version of someone died in a car accident there,
And their
their
child
parents
died.
cried as a child.
I've heard that one. And truth be told about Crybaby Bridge, over the bank, behind it, is a peacock farm. So that's what you're really hearing, are the cries of a peacock.
Oh, I see the peacock farm. They're all over the yard and stuff.
Yeah.
About time.
It's the same thing. Some people call it Crybaby Bridge, some call it Crybaby Tunnel. Every small town has a crybaby something, whether it be a tunnel, a tree, a house. There's always some kind of a crybaby story. Red shirt girl.
I don't know what this thing was, but I was sitting in my bedroom in the dark with my outfit and my sleep. So I started playing the PlayStation, and something passed my foot, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't move it. So it wasn't there.
Oh, is it a really old house?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe just someone making sure that you were getting ready for bed because your grandma was asleep. You probably should have been in bed. Could have been faster, reminding you to brush your teeth and go to bed. Gray shirt.
Yeah.
Do you believe in the paranormal activity?
Do I what?
Like the movies?
Do you believe in the paranormal activity stuff?
Those movies are a lot of fun, but they're all Hollywood. A lot of the stuff that they
Guys,
do in
quiet.
those movies and things that happen, completely false.
Like the dragon through the hallways and stuff?
Right, right. Black shirt with the awesome design and something.
I have a ghost that will attack you.
Guys!
Have ghosts ever tried to attack me?
Yeah.
Not attack me, but we've had like boxes and paint cans fall over or slam up against a wall, but nothing's ever touched me,
We've had something like pull somebody's hair before.
like lifted. Green shirt girl.
Colin.
Is the story that is true?
Is the what?
story that's true?
Yeah, that really did happen. And I only got 2 pieces of the chocolate, so I got rid of. Long shirt, blonde hair.
What about that one girl that died? She got hung or whatever?
Elizabeth Spread.
Yeah.
There's about 5 to 6 different versions of that story too.
Have you been there?
Now the fact that it's actually an old site where Native Americans would come and do burnt offerings and do their prayer time up there, meet and trade goods with each other. And then it was turned into a wildlife reserve. Before that, it was a farm. So the property's still owned by some family, but all of the family plots are still there. And the actual gravestone for this so-called Elizabeth is in the basement of the archives building on Main Street, behind the courthouse. So they took it in order to protect it because someone vandalized the place in the 1980s. Hoodie shirt. Yeah.
I didn't want to question the story, but...
Oh, no time for the story.
Yeah, but it's all right. It's a question.
Red shirt.
Red shirt girl?
No, boy.
Hi, Joey.
Up here.
Oh,
Yeah, how scared do you get? Like, have you ever been, like, really scared?
there have been times where I've been creeped out. Usually, if I'm that worried about it, we don't go any further. Because it's going to be something that's bad and you don't want to be around it.
Where the text?
Have I ever ran into a demon?
No. Next question.
Yeah.
How do you know if you're not probably?
How do you know? Leave out a plate of cookies. How do you know if your house is haunted? First, one surefire thing. If anything really weird or bad has ever happened in the house before, if the house is really old, the property itself, if anything crazy or weird has ever happened on the grounds itself. And for example, if you were to put an entire neighborhood in the battlefield of Gettysburg, every house would be haunted not because of what happened in the house, but because of what happened with the property.
So if you have this old house out back that somebody can go to the haunted, out in my back road, old houses that you pick free.
So there's probably some truth to that, because
Yeah.
energy stores itself no matter where you go, and that's normally what you're encountering is just stored up energies.
And unfortunately, that is all the time we have. If you have another question that you'd like to ask him, if you just write it down for me, I will get it to him and I'll put it in
To your language arts team.
And I'll answer it.
time. Right now, it says Mr. Hart.
We have Harley Old House here.
My class, stay seated. My class, stay seated.
No, but